But before we get started, a sincere shout out to our co-presenter, the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, and our presenting sponsor, Mirtha Kalina LLP, and our other sponsors, Realized Solutions, Red Rock Branding, Watson for videotaping today's event, Yale New Haven Health, and of course, the Regional Water Authority, for helping to make this morning a reality. Today, we are very excited to introduce all of you to a global movement in business called Conscious Capitalism. Co-founded by Whole Foods CEO John Mackey and Babson College professor Raj Sisodia in 2006, Conscious Capitalism is a philosophy that promotes using the power of business to improve society. It goes well beyond fostering responsible programs and policies that embrace sustainability. It recognizes the potential of business to make a positive impact on the community and the world. And at a time when corporate scandals have triggered a broad discussion about the role of business in society, I believe doing good while doing business couldn't be more relevant, timely, and essential. In fact, I'm just as passionate about conscious capitalism as I am about water. And speaking of water, I hope everyone is enjoying it. We made a fresh batch this morning just for this occasion. So cheers. I joined the Regional Water Authority in January 2009 when it was in a crisis caused by the financial crash of 2008 and other factors. The leadership team and I needed to right the ship immediately by drafting and implementing the organization's first strategic plan. Using that and subsequent plans, we have improved the utility significantly. The RWA is financially stronger, operates more efficiently, provides excellent customer service, and is a better place to work. Without fully realizing it, through this process and progress, we were integrating the 4 guiding principles of conscious capitalism into our business practices. The 4 principles are quite logical, and it's likely that you're already incorporating them in some capacity. In brief, they are: first, strive for a higher purpose. Second, achieve stakeholder balance. Third, practice conscious leadership. And fourth, promote a conscious culture. Throughout this morning's keynote and panel discussion, you'll hear examples of these principles at work in the real world. Adopting aspects of conscious capitalism has been a natural evolution for the RWA, and I am absolutely thrilled about the results that we have achieved. That is why I founded the Connecticut chapter of Conscious Capitalism in 2016, joining 40 other chapters across the United States and around the world. But I haven't been spreading the word alone, and I want to take a few minutes to introduce our board of directors. So as I pronounce your name, please stand and remain standing as I go through the list. First, Colleen McGuire, Vice Chair and co-founder and CEO of Silver Fern Healthcare. Allison Holzer, co-founder and Chief Innovation Officer of InspireCore. Nisha Kapoor, Corporate Associate with Mirtha Kalina, Attorneys at Law. Glenn McDermott, Founder and Creative Director for Red Rock Branding. Tony Resigno, Treasurer, immediate past President and CEO of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. Dr. Gregory Robbins, Associate Professor of Management for Southern Connecticut State University. Anna Rubino, Brand Leader at BIC. Karen Centeo, Owner and Chief Inspiration Officer for Uncover Your Verve. Eric Thompson, Principal, Blueback Advisors, LLC. Marcia Winter, Principal, The Winter Group. And, of course, our Executive Director, Karen Clark. Let's give them a big round of applause. Our goal is to introduce conscious capitalism to other Connecticut business and community leaders, like all of you. But like any social movement, it starts with many people doing small things that spark the activity. My personal mission is to create positive change in our state by growing awareness of conscious business practices to help them become the norm rather than the exception. Conscious capitalism takes many forms, as you will soon learn through this morning's program that features 2 tea companies, 2 third-generation family-owned businesses. Barry Nalebuff and his partner Seth Goldman built Honest Tea with a true sense of purpose, and it paid off in many ways. Bigelow Tea has a rich history of supporting its community, and Cindi Bigelow has continued the tradition of giving back. Gavin Watson has spearheaded initiatives at his family-owned manufacturing company that have had surprising benefits for employees. And Lawrence Ford isn't your typical wealth manager. He bridges the modern world of business and the ancient world of wisdom to help people and companies leverage the power of money to make the world a better place. We are very fortunate to have such a terrific lineup of speakers with us this morning. So let's get started. Before Jennifer Delmonico introduces our keynote speaker, Barry Nalebuff, let me briefly introduce Jennifer. Jennifer serves as the board chair of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, and she's the managing partner of Murtha Kalina LLP, where for more than 20 years as a trial lawyer, she has represented clients in a broad range of industries. Having had the pleasure to work with Jennifer while serving on the chamber board and through the legal work she and her firm do for the RWA, I know she believes in the power of conscious capitalism and in the ability of business to do good for society. But I'll let Jennifer tell you a bit more about her firm's connection to conscious capitalism. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer to the podium.
Thank you, Larry. It is such a pleasure to be here with all of you this morning on behalf of my law firm, Murtha Kalina. Our firm has been active in the creation, mentoring, and advising of many of the state's benefit corporations, each of which follows the tenets of conscious capitalism. In fact, we drafted new benefit LLC legislation for the state of Connecticut, which we expect to be before the legislature in the next session. We've supported the Connecticut chapter of Conscious Capitalism from the beginning, with 2 of our lawyers having served as board members. Dave Menard, a member of the original board, and now, as you heard a moment ago, Nisha Kapoor, a current board member. And at Murtha, we practice what we preach. In our own business, we are about way more than the bottom line and are proud to adhere to a values-based culture that puts people before profits. Because of our commitment to conscious capitalism, it is my true honor this morning to introduce today's keynote speaker. Barry Nalebuff is a scholar, the Milton Steinbach Professor at the Yale School of Management, an entrepreneur, and a mentor who practices what he preaches. In 1998, he and former student Seth Goldman founded Honest Tea. The company's mission: Honest Tea seeks to create and promote great tasting, healthy, organic beverages. We strive to grow our business with the same honesty and integrity we use to craft our recipes, with sustainability and great taste for all. This mission has guided Honest Tea's growth from 5 thermoses of its ready-to-drink iced tea to sales of more than 2 billion bottles, an acquisition by the Coca-Cola Company in 2011. Still true to that mission, Honest Tea has been named one of Inc. magazine's fastest growing companies. Alongside Honest Tea, Barry also founded Kombucha and Maker Oats. The latter is part of PepsiCo, where Barry serves as the chief troublemaker. Maybe he'll tell us a little bit more about how he earned that title. At Yale, Barry teaches negotiation, innovation, and game theory. He's co-authored 6 books on topics ranging from the art of strategy to game theory, to problem solving and ingenuity, to retirement investing. In his book, Mission in a Bottle, The Honest Guide to Doing Business Differently and Succeeding, he and Seth Goldman tell the story of honesty in a unique and engaging graphic novel format. A graduate of MIT, a Rhodes Scholar, and junior fellow at the Harvard Society of Fellows, Nalebuff earned his doctorate at Oxford University. In addition to teaching, he has extensive experience consulting with multinational firms, from American Express, GE, and McKinsey to Google and Rio Tinto. Needless to say, Barry is a very busy man, so we are so thrilled that he has cleared his calendar this morning to be here with us. Please join me in welcoming Barry Nalebuff to the podium.
I probably had the shortest commute of anyone here, since I live across the street. Thank you for inviting me. Let me amplify a few words that Jennifer said at the start. So I'm going to talk to you today on my take of conscious capitalism and emphasize the difference between conscious and unconscious capitalism. In terms of my background, unlike many people in New Haven, I didn't get into Yale. So I had to go to MIT. Which then led to Oxford, and then led to Harvard, and then Princeton. And so I couldn't hold a job, but for the last 30 years, I've been teaching here at Yale, where, as Jennifer pointed out, I write books on game theory that get translated into languages I can't read, and books on strategy. With Seth, when I had hair, we formed Honest Tea, which was a simple idea, tea that tasted like tea rather than liquid candy. And my favorite experience during that was, this is President Obama signing the Pay Our Military Act, and this was not quite perfect product placement. We didn't get the bottle turned correctly, but he was kind enough to sign it. Barry, I love my honesty, and I don't want to be partisan today, so this is Ivanka drinking a bottle, so we quench all thirsts, and as Jennifer pointed out, I think, yep, perfect.
And we make much more than our name suggests. We're an organic tea company.
So now we're part of Coca-Cola, which means we get to be part of the McDonald's Happy Meal, where they take out Minute Maid and put in Honest Kids. And when I go to New York subway stations, they're plastered with Honest Tea, which is fun. After Honest Tea, I had a chance to make fermented tea, kombucha, or alcoholic kombucha, which has as its motto, get tickled, not pickled. It's only 2% alcohol, and that's now part of Anheuser-Busch. And most recently, I thought that we should have a healthy breakfast that you can have in a hurry, which is not really a hurry because you have to make it the night before. But having made it the night before, you have this great breakfast waiting. And I was causing enough trouble, I got promoted all the way to chief troublemaker. And that company is now part of Quaker Oats, which is part of Pepsi. And I have brought samples for all of you for later today. So key thing for any entrepreneur to do. And I teach negotiation. I also get to practice it. So I've worked with the NBA. I say I help the short billionaires work with the tall millionaires. And I'm going to use some examples of that. SOM as an institution, I think, tries to embody this conscious capitalism. We say as our motto, we educating leaders for business and society, and we very much care about that and. But I also have a little hesitation when we think about conscious versus unconscious capitalism. I note sort of various slides and brochures which talk about the fact that you do all these things and it's win-win-win. And, you know, if it were the case that doing all of these things just led to higher profits without any cost, then actually we didn't have to have conscious capitalism. We could have unconscious capitalism. And I note that Jennifer said that she puts people before profits. Well, if it turns out that was the way to highest profits, guess what? You wouldn't have to say you put people before profits, because actually just profits would then also mean I've got everything I'm doing right for people. So one of the lines that I find on the Conscious Capitalism website is, conscious business is a win-win-win proposition, which includes a healthy return to shareholders. Okay, well, actually, maybe a little less return to shareholders and a little more return to society, to customers, to employees. There's enough to go around, I get that. But I think that we should emphasize that there can be some costs associated with it, which requires some consciousness. And if it's all about just straight up maximizing profits, and this is all for the good for everything, then we don't actually have to be conscious. Recent research by Oliver Hart and Luigi Zingales talks about what it is that firms should be doing to represent their shareholders. And Milton Friedman says, well, you have one goal, which is to maximize shareholder values, but remember, shareholders are people. And shareholders, therefore, as people, care about things, not just profits. And so they give some examples that, well, look, if shareholders are willing to spend $100 to reduce $120 of pollution, shouldn't the firm do that? Okay, yeah, that makes some sense. On the other hand, should firms be giving money to charity? Well, shareholders as people can do that too. And the thing is that if the firm gives $100 or $1,000 to the Red Cross, I can, in some sense, undo that by giving less money to the Red Cross. And so it's not quite so clear why the firm is in a better position to do this than I am. On the other hand, if what the firm is doing are things like Walmart selling high-capacity magazines, or ExxonMobil doing an offshore oil rig that creates a risk, there's no way for me as an individual to undo that. And so what we should be thinking about is the extent to which firms are doing things which their shareholders would not want them to do, that the shareholders can't undo. And when you think of those kind of actions, that's a place where I think firms should be thinking about their shareholders as people, not just as receptacles for dividends. In terms of the role of being conscious, I'm going to give you 3 different areas where I have spent time thinking about this. The first is negotiation, then it is innovation, and lastly, it is this idea of raising consciousness. So in negotiation, the lesson that I like to emphasize is the importance of being allocentric. So ego is self, allo is other, so it's being conscious of what other people are desiring, what other people are thinking. And I'm going to start off by showing you a video, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, because I'm a professor. And what I want you to do as you watch this video is think about what goes wrong. What mistakes were made? Okay, that's your job as you're watching this video. And, oh, let me just say, this is the seller, this is the buyer.
Okay, I guess... All right, so I guess I'll tell you, just for you to understand where I'm coming from. I've spent 12 years building this business, and we're getting to the point where my wife and I were working 18-hour days, and my wife is on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And so what we want to do, we want to take a trip, and we would like to cover the expenses of that trip, and that's going to come to $488,000, and that's literally the bare minimum I can accept from you in order to do this deal. I can't accept less, because that's what it's going to cost to get on this trip. And I've sunk $50,000 into a boat. We sold our condo, and that $50,000 is gone. It's in the boat, and so I have to continue doing payments on that.
A boat?
Yeah. Do you want to see pictures of the boat?
No, that's okay.
I think I have some pictures in the boat. So
would you be willing to accept $400,000?
So that's not going to be enough, because I think where we can negotiate maybe is that I have an additional boat payment that is upcoming, that I have to take care.
How are you saving for this boat? You know, there are less expensive forms of travel than boat.
We're seafaring people, so
Seafaring.
I think where we can have some negotiation are we have these additional expenses that are upcoming. We have the boat payment of $230,000, and then we have these payments of $68,000, $75,000, and $40,000 sort of down the line. So if we could maybe, I don't know if we can space it out, or if we can work on when. So
your business proposition to us is that you would like Next Oil to fund your trip.
Well, I mean, because
I'm not really sure why I care.
Look, what I do with my money is what I do with my money. So I'm telling you that because I think that I'm laying my cards out on the table, and I would like for you to reciprocate in some way, because I feel like we're able to, we could work better if I knew a little bit more about where you're coming from. And so that's why I told you all that.
We have more flexibility here. We could buy your station, we could buy elsewhere, we could get something new, we could get something old and fix it up. We don't have to be in this area at all. And considering our expertise in the field and our ownership of the other two stations, I think we've given you a pretty fair offer.
By these are two, at that time, drama school students who are reproducing another actual negotiation. For those of you in Westport area, that's Michael Barker, who is currently the managing director of Westport Playhouse. So you can congratulate him on his acting. So what went wrong? Go ahead. Self-interest? Say what again? Two different planets, okay, but no strategy, no thought process. Who are you referring to here? The gentleman, okay. He knew what he wanted, which was to travel on a trip around the world. And that trip cost $488,000. And so he was saying that's how much he needed for his gas station. And she points out, well, the cost of the trip isn't necessarily the value of the station. Okay. Other things that you thought went wrong? He didn't pitch his value proposition. Sir? He cut off the opportunity where she said, would you take 400? Well, 400 wasn't going to do it for him. So he didn't feel like he could accept that. He didn't talk about the value of the property. And you could add to this, he had verbal diarrhea. He was giving up all sorts of information he might not want to give up. Okay. Now, my purpose in showing you this video is all of your reactions are the standard reactions. But actually, I don't think that's what went wrong in this negotiation. Yes? So he showed his desperate. I see everybody picks on him. But actually, I think the reason this negotiation didn't succeed was her. Because the key line that she said is, tell me why I should care. Okay? She didn't care about what he wanted. She dismissed it. Oh, that's stupid to take a trip around the world. And because she didn't care, she wasn't interested in solving his problem. It turned out that one of the reasons he needed $488,000 is he didn't have a job when he came back, and so he needed money in reserve. And he's a great gas station manager. He's not a good negotiator, but he knows how to run a gas station. And she happens to be a person who organizes managers of lots of gas stations. And if she offers him a job when he comes back, that actually lowers his needs by $100,000, and so they can actually do the deal. So why should she care? Because if he gets to take his trip around the world, what does she get to do? Buy the gas station. Well, by the way, that's not his problem, that's her problem. Which is, you should always be caring. Because if you help them get what they want, you get to get what you want. And that oftentimes in negotiations, what we do is spend all our time denigrating what the other side wants, as opposed to helping them achieve it. And so that's my point to you about being conscious, which is instead of arguing against it, actually care about what they're trying to achieve, because that will allow you to get what it is that you want, or just because you're a great, nice person. But even if you're not a person who feels that way, you should still care.
Okay.
The next example of negotiation is something I learned from David Stern at the NBA. And he had this challenge. Not only was he negotiating with the athletes, but there are 30 owners of teams, each of whom is a billionaire, who thinks he or she is the smartest person in the planet. Maybe the universe, maybe the galaxy. And as a result, and that would be fun if they all agreed with each other, but they didn't. And so one of the things that he would regularly do is, if we wanted A as our outcome, he would go and make all the arguments for B. So much so, so convincingly, that I was convinced at times that he actually had the wrong script in front of him. And then, having made all the arguments for B, he would turn around and say, here's why we have to do A. And if you were one of the B supporters, well, what was left for you to say? All your arguments have been made perfectly. But more than that, in life, we can't always get our way, but we can always be understood. And that when we spend time trying to show the holes in other people's arguments, what they do is they start thinking we don't understand their argument. And so instead of spending all your time negating, not listening, actually make the other side's argument for them. Because if you want to demonstrate you understand their position, a great way of doing it is to make their advocacy. Some of you may be familiar with this scene. I'll show you a little bit. This is a trigger alert if you're a little sensitive, but this is the last scene in 8 Mile.
This guy ain't no motherfucking MC. I know everything he's about to say against me. I am white. I am a fucking punk. I do live in a trailer with my mom. My boy Future is an Uncle Tom. I do got a dumb friend named Cheddar Bob who shoots himself in his leg with his own gun. I did get jumped by all 6 of you chumps. This guy ain't no
Okay, so what is Eminem doing here? He's basically making all the arguments against him so that when the other side comes up, basically there's nothing left to be said. Okay, he does a little more profane than some of us might. But again, this idea that we're so afraid of exposing our weaknesses that we try to hide them. And I would say, actually, it's not as if the other side isn't going to be aware of them. So let's go and put them out there and actually in the process neutralize them. I was going to give you, I know you're all from New Haven, but I'm going to give you, not all, maybe a short tour that's connected to something I want to describe. So if you start on High Street and you go to Skull and Bones, and there's a little alleyway there, and you go down that alleyway, there's a gate, and you go through the gate, there's some stairs, you go up the stairs, there's another set of stairs, you turn left, and you're in the sculpture garden. And in the sculpture garden, you've got these Louise Nevelsons and other mobiles. But there's a piece by Paul Forte, which is a headstone which says, "Hear no lies." And I think that's a critical message for negotiation under 3 categories. So the first category is this idea from improvisation, which is when you're working a scene with somebody, instead of saying no but, it's yes and. It's how can I build on what the other person is saying? So essentially, let us bury the word no. The second meaning, I think, of hear no lies is when somebody says no to you and gives you a rejection, you should take that as not now, not yet, as opposed to not ever. And for the artist Paul Forte, that was actually his experience with this piece. He had had several commissions turned down. And this was his idea of burying all those rejections. And then the third meaning that I want to emphasize here is this notion of telling the truth. And it turns out a lot of people feel that in negotiation it's okay to lie. And I'm going to give you one last little video which shows what can go wrong here. So, sir, let's see if we can play that last piece.
So yeah, we have a couple other offers on the table.
Okay. What's the offer?
Best offer is $500K. So that's the number to beat.
Wow, that's a really good offer. I'd take that if I were you.
She did not have a $500K offer. And there's no way of going back at that point, right? It's like, well, I didn't really have that $500K offer. I prefer doing business with you. Not so much. So to the extent you like these things, there's a course that's free online that I've developed at Coursera, coursera.org. You just Google my name and enjoy that.
So yeah, we have a...
The second place that I want to talk to you about being conscious is in this realm of innovation. And some of you grew up with the story of Princess and the Pea. Actually, a quick question. What was the moral of that story? See if any of you remember this from your childhood. Pea is 8 mattresses below the princess. Yes, that's what happens. But what's the story? What's the moral of that story? What was the point of the pea being 8 mattresses below the princess? She could feel it, and therefore, she was the real princess. Now, when my mom told me that story, her moral was slightly different, which was, you're not a princess, so forget about that pea and let's move on. Roll over. And my point to you, actually, in terms of being conscious is, I want you to be conscious of those peas. Because those annoyances that we're taught to ignore, to roll over, actually can be the seed of a great business. And also, it's something that customers are likely to be conscious of, and we can improve their world as well. So I want to get that inner princess back. And for us, that P was that Seth and I couldn't find anything we wanted to drink. That everything out there, in my view, water, which I like, is boring. Sodas are liquid candy, and diet is dangerous. And so why couldn't we have water with a little bit of flavor, namely tea that tastes like tea? And so with Seth, we decided to see if we could make that happen. And our first lesson was that we should build something that we believe in. If you look at the United States in terms of lifespan, we're number 1 in income and number 44 in terms of longevity. And that doesn't make any sense. And there are, I think, 2 aspects to that. One is income inequality, which changes access to health, but the other is our diet. And that we have too much sugar in our diet. We have not too much sediment, we're too sediment. And so could we help change the American diet and in the process also have a successful business? It turns out that if you don't have a successful business, you don't have any change. And so you could have the world's greatest toilet paper made from recycled whatever, but if it gives people splinters, right, it's not going to work. And so in order to have change, it seems to me that you have to have something that people care about, and that actually it has to taste great. And so that was our goal starting out, and people understood that. I started to read your website last night, and I thought, oh my gosh, I would beg to work at this company. I would move so I could work for your company. How responsible are you? That's just so everything. I wish you did everything. I wish you did my banking. I wish you were my neighbors. Okay? That's the type of reaction that people had, and these aren't even my family, that we were able to generate. We had customers who tattooed our logo on their arm. I haven't done that. Just incredible passion in that way. And in terms of raising consciousness, it's one thing just to have a product that does all these things, but I believe you actually have to spread the message. And one way of spreading that message is what you say on the label. And so we took a as our motto, the idea of a wine label. And with the help of local designer Sloan Wolfson, said, how could we introduce people to this mystery of tea? And so this tea became a keyhole into various cultures. We also decided that we wanted to be anti-garish. And so you have little kind of specks that emphasize the tea crate. We went to Whole Foods, having made tea in a thermos. We took labels that we had designed, printed them off, stuck them on an old Snapple bottle with rubber cement, spray painted a cap black, refilled the bottle, and they made an order. But when we presented this to them, we emphasized how different we were. So it's not enough to be 10% better. We viewed as being radically different and better. So this is what they call tea, and that was honest tea. If you looked and we showed them on their shelves, here's the stuff you're selling. It has 100 calories, 120 calories. We're at 17 calories. In terms of telling your story, first off, you actually have to have a story. So as my grandmother said, you can't make chicken salad from chicken shit. And in that regard, no BS. So there's a local company here that I'm going to beat up called Maya's Yogurt. And what they say on their label is, we love moms, nutrition inspired by moms. We dedicated years to handcraft strain yogurt that tastes as delicious as it is beneficial. Probiotic packed with 2 times the protein and no extra sugar. We make sure Maya Yogurt will help make every day a little more fulfilling while ensuring you feel your best. Okay, 1, that's fluff. 2, there is lots of sugar in there. So what does no extra sugar mean? It means they've packed it with the amount of sugar the recipe called for, which in my view is not a statement about no extra sugar. We love moms. Okay, great. Who doesn't? But that doesn't tell me anything about how we're making a difference. I love UCAN as a product. I use this as a powder to help give energy. But their things say, Generation UCAN, it's more than a feeling, it's an attitude, a fresh perspective, a generation that believes anything is possible. Yeah, okay. But can anybody else say that? Everybody can say that. And if somebody else can say it, then actually it's not really about you. So in contrast with honest tea, here's what we put on the back. We were thirsty. We searched for bottled tea that truly tasted like tea but couldn't find any. So we decided to make our own. Honest teas are sweetened with a touch of sugar cane sugar or honey, never high fructose corn syrup. The result is a subtle flavor, 1/6 the calories of those super sweet tea-flavored drinks. So you understand why it is that we started this business and how it is that we're different than everybody else. And what's remarkable to me is the extent to which people have this billboard and don't use it to explain how it is they're making a difference. Here's a company in India that sells chili powder, and it turns out that they use in this widows to be the ones who are picking the chili peppers. They are supporting these women in agriculture, but you would never know this. And after a presentation like this, they change their packaging, and here's their new packaging. So you can learn about Srinivadabin, who's one of the farmers whose farms these spices are sourced. Rudy has helped her in getting the best quality spices to reach you. By buying this packet of chili powder, you'll be providing your support to many more women like her. It's created and checked by mothers. And it doesn't cost any more to tell your story on the packaging. But you actually have to have that story. And you have to think about not just writing fluff, but stuff that actually matters. We had thought for a while that maybe on the front of our label, we should just put the nutrition facts because we were quite proud of that. And it wasn't necessarily the right answer for us, but it was the right answer for RxBar. And they created an amazing business, essentially, by telling you what their ingredients are as the selling point. I think this idea of communicating your consciousness is something that was one of the key ideas behind the Prius, right? That basically not only am I getting 50 miles per gallon, but I want you to know that fact. And the unusual shape of that car was a way for me to demonstrate to other people and to possibly shame them a little bit about the fact that they're not getting the same type of mileage that I'm getting. I have a student who made shirts that were made out of organic cotton. And it turns out that cotton is the largest use of pesticides, more than any foods that we eat. And so this is making cotton without pesticides. Now, how is it that other people are going to know that you're wearing an organic cotton shirt? Well, I'm not going to put a USDA organic seal right here. That's going to kind of ruin my dress shirt. But I want to do something that's going to demonstrate how I'm a little different and better. And so the idea is using green thread. And then somebody may say to you, what's up with the green thread? You say, well, this shirt is organic cotton. Did you know that cotton was the biggest use of pesticides? And now, effectively, I'm starting that conversation. So you want to do something to create a conversation starter. Okay. I think that it's also the case that when people do market research, they do it in a way that is unconscious. So when Honest Tea started out, we lost a taste test to Snapple 80-20. Was that a sign that we should give up ship? Why not? They're used to the sugar, okay. Wrong market. We're committed. All right, how many of you would start a business where you lose 80-20 in your taste test? So here's the thing. This group had 10 companies competing for it. There was Lipton, Coca-Cola, Nestle, Sobe, Snapple, Arizona, all going after the 80. There was no one going after the 20. And so you can't just ask 80 versus 20. You have to say, what fraction of the 80 can I get versus what fraction of the 20? And I'd rather have the 20 all to myself rather than be part of the 80. And so one thing to be conscious about is finding customers who are radically being underserved. Okay? We lose a blind taste test because we intentionally make the product not as sweet as possible. Not as sweet as possible, not as sweet as our customers want it to be. So why would you ever make a product that doesn't maximize taste even for your customer group? And the answer is that as you cut back sugar a little bit, you lose almost nothing in terms of taste, but the customer saves calories. And we save cost of ingredients. And in fact, if you think about a blind taste test, so here we see on our label, it doesn't take an econ PhD to brew tea, but Barry has one. Sometimes it helps. Here's how. Sugar, like most goods, has a declining marginal utility. 1 teaspoon takes away the bitterness. Another adds a nice sweetness. That's where we stop. More sugar adds calories, but not much more taste. So very few labels have utility curves on them, but there you go. Now, if you think about a blind taste test, you have your eyes open. Your eyes closed and your mouth open. One of the things I like to do is flip things. And so the opposite of that would be your eyes open and your mouth closed. And what are you doing there? Listening. I like that. I hadn't thought about that. I claim what you're doing at that point is just being a label reader. So label readers, you know who you are, have noticed that other manufacturers disguise the taste of their tea with all kinds of additives. In this bottle, you'll taste just the highest quality black tea, unsweetened and naturally delicious. Our black tea is also just in the sense of fair, as in fair trade certified. The fair trade seal helps us ensure that tea garden workers will get paid fair wages. We love our just black for both what's on the label and what's not. So essentially, people focus on what the thing tastes like, but you can also focus on having the world's greatest label. And what's probably the ideal product is something that tastes really good and has a really good label, but it's not necessarily a perfect label or a perfectly tasting product. And blind taste tests lead you to just focus on taste, not other things. At Honest Tea, we thought about what else we could make honest, and that led us to think about what's the world's worst beverage out there. And it wasn't actually sodas, it was Capri Sun, which had more sugar in it than Coca-Cola, actually high fructose corn syrup. So we took their product, We cut the calories from 110 to 40, got rid of the high fructose corn syrup, made it organic, doubled the price, and created Honest Kids, which now is half the company's sales. It seems to be working. My daughter wanted me to tell you that whoever made her lemonade, can you tell those people how good it is? It's as good as about 1 million. If it were a number, it'd probably be a gazillion. I don't think there are a bunch of donkeys running that place. Okay? So when Coca-Cola bought the business, they did a focus group to see if they should make Honest Kids sweeter. And when they did that focus group, they discovered that 87% of kids wanted it sweeter. Was that the right answer? Because you have to be conscious of who's your customer. And who's the customer here? The parents, not just moms. Dads too buy this. And here's the thing, that we make it even less sweet than Honest Tea. What we did in our market research is we kept on cutting the sugar down to the point where kids would throw it against the wall. And then we went back up one. The goal was to make it as unsweet as possible so that you didn't have to bribe your kids to drink it. Because essentially this was being purchased based on the label, and we wanted to have as good a label as possible. And so this idea of being focused on your customers, well, you have to be very conscious of who your customers are. And we couldn't convince Coke not to waste their money on the market research, but ultimately we laid down our sword and said, look, you have just misunderstood what's going on here, and we were able to preserve the basic proposition of Honest Kids. They have not changed it in this regard. The last topic I want to emphasize is the importance of being fully conscious. And here I'm going to be a bit more controversial. So if you look at, here's an example of a company that does lots of giving, 25 millions for Success 360, 4 millions for employee programs, environment. They hire heroes in terms of military veterans. They support the Red Cross. In terms of the arts, they give money to the JFK Center, to the Smithsonian, to the National Mall. It's, what a great company to work for. Except it's Altria. And so I don't care how much of a good corporate citizen you are if you're selling cancer sticks. And of course, I'd rather them give money to these good organizations than other people. But in the end, the question is, can you be conscious capitalism if, in fact, you're selling a fundamentally dangerous, destructive product? David Rubenstein, the CEO, co-founder of Carlyle, he is viewed as this fantastic philanthropist. He bought a copy of the Declaration of Independence, gave it to the Smithsonian, built a room for the Smithsonian, restored the Washington Monument because the government's broke, can't afford to do this, gave money to support the pandas, Monticello, the national parks, $100 million to Duke, scholarships for low-income students, money to the University of Chicago. I mean, this list is a very impressive list. And I'm sure if he were to come in here, we'd all be sort of clapping our hands and thrilled, except for one thing, that his first business was brokering $1 billion in tax losses from Native American Alaskans, for which he earned $10 million and cost the government $1 billion. And that was called the Great Eskimo Tax Scam. He spent $5 million lobbying against the carried interest provision, which helped save him $100 million and has cost the government $80 billion over 10 years. And so how do I feel about somebody who's a, quote, a philanthropist, but why is the government broke? It's broke because he's basically spending the money to change the rules of the game so that he can be a philanthropist. Now, of course, I want him to go and do these things in terms of giving money to all those folks, but I don't want him then to be so rich that he tilts the playing field. And this is the distinction between succeeding in business by playing well under the game or spending your money to tilt the playing field so that you get to have an unfair advantage. And what I'm afraid that we're seeing a lot in terms of capitalism these days are people spending the $5 million So they get the billions, so then they can be feted as these great philanthropists. And this is a challenge because really I'm looking for the full picture. 90% gets you an A at Yale, actually 80% gets you an A, 70% gets you an A at Yale, but I want us to go that extra step. And, Ben and Jerry's, they give lots of money to support programs in Africa, but they sell a high-fat, high-sugar product that isn't improving our health. The Yale feminist hat is something that I've worn proudly, but then learned that it was made in poor conditions in China. And so, okay, it's not made by union workers in the United States. So I got a problem there. Honest Tea has had challenge. There's actually a boycott against Honest Tea because we, as part of Coca-Cola, have been fighting GMO labeling. And Coca-Cola is on the wrong side of that. And Honest Tea is now part of Coca-Cola. And if you want GMO labeling, well, okay, let's try and change that. It turns out we may be the only voice inside Coke that is actually on the other side, but nonetheless, they are spending resources to push the wrong dimension there. I want to be, so I thought I would go one step further in terms of trying to raise consciousness and realizing that no one is perfect. I picked something actually from the RWA, which is pipe safe. And pipe safe is important in the sense there are a lot of people who may not have the $4,000 that will cost them if their pipe breaks between the water main and their house. You probably get a large number of mailings, maybe 6 times a year, telling you about the fact that pipe breaks are up and it's going to be a disaster if it happens. Well, the protection is $5,000. The average loss is $2,500. And actually, I did some research on that. Across the country, it's only about $800. But in Connecticut, we're a little bit better than that. We're $2,643. So if it costs $2,500 on average and it's $80 a year, what that says is that your loss has to be 3.2%, or once every 31 years for this to make sense. Actually, I'm curious, how many people in this room have had a pipe break? Wow, from between the street and your house. That's pipe break I'm talking about, by the way, not inside the house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Now, if I thought about this in terms of how many house years we've had here, right? I'd probably say 30 house years per person. And so 7 out of 100, so it's really 7 out of 3,000. So I think that's actually well below 3.2%, if I'm going to do my quick calculations. So I'm not just lucky. So one of the things I would like in terms of raising consciousness is when I get that bill or that offer, I'd like to know 2 things. One, what is the frequency? Not just that I had a neighbor doing it, but let me know how often it happens and on average what it costs. And the other thing I'd like is to think about the quarterly payments versus the annual payments. So it turns out you can pay $80 one time, or you can pay $21.50 on a quarterly basis. And you do $21.50 quarterly, that's $6 of interest over the year. Now, that's not a lot of interest, but actually, since you make your first payment at the same time you would have paid the $80, you're really borrowing $60. And you're borrowing $60 really only for 9 months. So I'm being conscious about little things here, I admit that. But $60 over 9 months is the equivalent of really borrowing $40 on average. And if you're borrowing $40 and paying $6 in interest, that's a 20% interest rate. That's a pretty high interest rate. Now, are people necessarily noticing that? Well, this is that P 6 levels underneath the mattress. Because the people who really need this product, who can't afford the problem when their pipe breaks, are also the same people who are probably being forced to pay it on the installment basis. So let's be clear. I love the fact that my water tastes great. that there's we're not Flint, Michigan, that the whole system is working, that our prices are reasonable. But I want everything. I want the non-GMO labeling. I want my hat made under union workers in the United States, right? I want the whole package. And that aspect of being conscious about the big things and the little things, to me, is something that we can aspire to. And I recognize that this is a challenge, that we are in a journey here, that no one is perfect, and that we shouldn't pretend to be. So I hope that you can think about places in your own life where you can also be continuing to improve. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Ready? Well, Barry, thank you very much for that interesting and thought-provoking presentation. And I want to thank you again on behalf of the Board of Directors and everyone here for sharing your insights and experiences. And we'll have a table in the back of the room if you want to sign up for Pipe Safe. It really is a good deal. So. Next, I'd like you to meet Garrett Sheehan, President of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce and Executive Director of the Regional Leadership Council, the region's advocate for economic growth. Garrett also serves as President of the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce, an affiliate of the Greater New Haven Chamber. And he serves on the Board of Directors of the Connecticut Economic Resource Center, Connecticut Economic Development Association, Southern Connecticut State University Business Advisory Council, and the Workforce Alliance. Prior to joining the Chamber in March, Garrett also has held positions in economic development, worked as a television journalist, served in Afghanistan with the Connecticut Army National Guard. Well, you wonder where he gets all that time, huh? The Chamber does a fantastic job of supporting our business community, and Garrett did not hesitate when I asked for the Chamber's support of our event. I want to give him and his team a special thanks for that and call Garrett to the podium to introduce the next segment of our program. Garrett, please come up. Thanks so much. Is that okay there?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Larry. At the Chamber, what we like to do is bring people together and provide great quality programs, and being a part of this event with Conscious Capitalism is right in line with that. Our goal is to help you do business better, and our great manifestation of that is our Business Expo, which is coming up on November 15th. We have a full day of speakers that we will be having coming through, someone from Google, Dr. David Katz, but I do want to draw everyone's attention to Dr. Mark Mayberry, Chief Technology Officer at Stanley Black & Decker. We'll be speaking at 9:45 at our expo. It's in Wallingford at the Oakdale Theater, and we hope you all can join us. Now with that, I am going to move to introduce the great panel that we have this morning. Let me start first by introducing Bryan Smith, who will moderate the panel discussion. Bryan has been helping Connecticut residents wake up for the past 20 years as host of an FM radio morning show. Some of you may remember Bryan from the Smith and Barber Show, which aired for many years on WPLR. After that, he went on to have his own talk show and then worked as a news anchor in New York City. Now he's back in Connecticut, bringing his own brand of comedy and curiosity to the area, again at WQUN. Listen to him with news anchor Mike Lyle, weekdays from 3 to 6. They deliver a full show of national and local news, sports, and America's best music. Let me also introduce the rest of the panel. As I'm talking, they can come up and start to take their seats. Cindi Bigelow is the third-generation president and CEO of family-owned Bigelow Tea, founded by her grandmother in 1945. Before assuming this role in 2005, she spent nearly 20 years in all areas of the company. Based in Fairfield, Connecticut, Bigelow Tea is the national market leader of specialty teas and maker of Constant Comment. It employs 400 people and produces 2 billion plus tea bags annually. Cindi travels the world to ensure that only the finest teas and ingredients are used in her family tea recipes and that gardens treat employees fairly and equitably. The leader of a benefit corporation, she continues to champion sustainable practices such as installation of 880 photovoltaic solar panels that offset energy usage at the company headquarters and the conservation of water and natural gas across all 3 plants. Known for her volunteerism and tireless community service, Cindi initiated the annual Bigelow Tea Community Challenge that has donated over $1.7 million to local charities, and Bigelow's Tea for the Troops project that has donated over 6 million tea bags to U.S. servicemen and women. A passionate advocate for education, she also loves talking to students about business ethics, and career development. And I have visited the plant. It was several years ago when I worked for United Illuminating, but it's an incredible operation that Cindi has there. Cindi, welcome. Our second panelist is Lawrence Ford, CEO and founder of Conscious Capital Wealth Management. Lawrence was dubbed the Shaman of Wall Street by the Washington Post. This is a theme. He has many titles here. And The Economist referred to him as a man of 2 worlds. NPR, they named him the finance guru, and the Retirement Income Journal dubbed him as the spiritual advisor. Lawrence has dedicated much of his life to serving as a bridge between the modern world of business and the ancient world of wisdom. This has led to the collaborations with some of the world's best thought and action leaders. He has worked with the United Nations on its Sustainable Development Goals, designed to end poverty in all of its forms everywhere. He also was the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize Forum representative for private commerce, and he also collaborated with Dr. Harry Markowitz, Nobel Prize winner of the modern portfolio theory. Welcome, Lawrence. And our final panelist is Gavin Watson, the Vice President of Manufacturing and Maintenance at Watson Incorporated. The family business started in 1939 has become one of the highest quality suppliers of products and services to enhance health and nutrition. Gavin, who holds degrees in psychology and religious studies from Fairfield University, is an avid reader of books on psychology, happiness, and human organizations. As Watson's head human ecologist, he has led efforts to improve operations, reduce energy consumption, protect the environment, and support the overall health and well-being of company employees. Watson leaders and employees support many causes, including the fight against hunger. In fact, you may have seen Gavin on WTNH TV recently talking about how they turned the lawn of their orange warehouse into a friendship garden, an endeavor that has produced a lot more than fresh vegetables and produce for employees, their families, and the local community. Let's welcome our panel this morning. And with that, I'll call up Bryan to get us started. Bryan, thank you.
Well, this is going to be like a game show, but Garrett took over the Jeopardy part of the program. So thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Garrett. Everybody, big hand for Garrett. And I'd like to do too, just to bring a little human territory into this, is give a big hand for everybody here at the Lawn Club for helping to put this together. All our volunteers here today. I was going to use that chair. I'm going to stand up. So what I'd like to offer is anybody wants to up their ticket price for another $25, come on up here. I've been to a lot of business breakfasts like this in the tri-state area. A few radio stations do this. First of all, I've got to say, where'd Barry go? There's Barry. It's one of the best ones I've ever seen, Barry. Big hand for Barry again, too. When I hear something like that, my first panic is that I'm back in college. The second one is I need like an hour just to sit there with nothing happening, just to kind of let it all sink in. So that was great. And I am drinking water, but I do want to go buy some Honest tea as well now. So it worked. All right, let's do a big hand for our panel here. We've got to meet them a little bit. Cindi Bigelow from Bigelow Tea. Cindi, if you want to say hi, just to make sure that your microphone is working.
Hi.
Hi.
Is it working?
Can we hear Cindi?
If I can move it up a little bit. Good? A little bit
Okay.
up. I hear a little bit up, and that's the front row. Ooh. Is that better? I could talk louder. Okay.
I have a bullhorn in the car if you'd like one. All right. Cindi Bigelow.
We'll
We
go like
met
this.
Cindi. She runs Bigelow Tea. And as far as all our panelists up here, we've brought you all together because the board knows that you embrace the higher purpose of conscious capitalism. Cindi, you've had some big impacts at Bigelow Tea. And it's a benefit corporation becoming a B Corp next year. Tell us more about how you interact with conscious capitalism.
Well, it's funny. I had heard, the term is relatively new for me. I had heard John Mackey talking about it.
Can you not hear Cindi?
Not loud enough. All right, how's this?
Would you like to hold the microphone?
I have my own mic now.
that's good.
No, I'm
That's
like
good.
you. I got a mic.
Okay.
Anyway, I had heard the term conscious capitalism a few years back when I was listening to John Mackey, but I will tell you from a philosophy or really a foundation, it was something that we've really sort of, I guess you want to say, been doing. I don't know if that's really the right terminology for a very long time. So for me, why I'm so excited to be here and with these lovely gentlemen is that it's really something that we all need to be thinking about. I think we can tell, no matter what side of the aisle one is on, how divisive we are, and we're not really thinking about the greater good, and we're not thinking about a center good to be focused on. So to me, conscious capitalism is really taking that into your business where you're not thinking about, certainly as an owner or as a CEO, what's good for me or what's good for the family. Is really the philosophy is what is good for the organization. And that organization includes what's good for the people, what's good for the community, what's good for the environment. And so to me, conscious capitalism is giving a terminology that is really what I think all leaders, and I say leaders, I use that term to be very inclusive. So whether you are a leader in your own home or you're a leader of a department of 1 or 10 or 1,000, we all need to be really thinking about a centerpiece of good that isn't just about what is good for us. And I know for me at Bigelow, that's really how I was groomed, and that's how I try to role model to everyone in the organization. And conscious capitalism is the perfect terminology for that. So for me, I'm very excited to be part of this, just so we can really get everyone to start to think about that centerpiece of goodness.
Thank you, Cindi. Gavin, on the end, works for a food ingredients company in West Haven. I think every time we go to ShopRite, Stop and Shop, or your local independent stores, we see a lot of Bigelow tea.
I hope you're all drinking a cup of tea right now.
What kind
It's
of
the right
tea? Okay. Gavin, before we even start, just tell us a little bit about your company and Watson Foods.
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. So, so Watson's been in business for about 85 years. We're a third generation, very similar to Bigelow Tea, family businesses, right? We do ingredients for the food industry. So the primary things that we make are vitamin, mineral, nutritional blends that we sell to all kinds of other companies. So, we sell stuff to Coca-Cola, we sell stuff to Pepsi. They're some of our biggest customers. If you've eaten breakfast cereal, sports nutrition bar, some sort of sports drink or something like that, you've totally had our product. We also make edible glitter. So it's that stuff that makes things all sparkly. It's all that unicorn stuff that's going on now.
So did you say edible glitter?
Yeah, the whole glitter thing. Yeah,
Okay.
it's just everything's about sparkling glitter and unicorns these days. So yeah, we make edible glitter that people can put on food.
That's great.
Do a glitter tea.
Yeah, yeah, do glitter tea.
We could do the tea and the glitter together. I think you've got a home run. Did you bring your business to Connecticut from someplace else? You brought it all here.
Yeah, so our business started down in New York in the Queens, and my father brought it up to West Haven back in like 1985. And I just wanted to echo, what Cindi was saying too. I think, all three of us come at this with, we do it because it's the right thing to do. It's it's something that's part of our core, our mission, or our purpose in life. And it also happens to be serendipitously a thing that also makes our companies run really well. So there's definitely an extra thing you get out of this. So we're doing it because it's the right thing to do, but it's also an improvement for the way everything works. So what motivates me every day is my alarm goes off at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm excited to come into work. I'm eager to get there. There's things to do, people I want to see. And at the end of the day, I leave all energized and excited because we did great stuff. And now that's the experience that I want everybody else in our company to be having too. That same experience. Because when people leave their workday fulfilled, they go home. That energy spreads to their families, spreads to the school system, spreads to the community, and all of that stuff just makes the world a better place.
Thank you very much. There's also something about Gavin and his company that you did for your people.
Yeah.
It made a few TV stories, made a few news stories, but this is known as a tease. We'll get to that a little later on. We'll find out what he's done. How's it working out, by the way?
Good.
Okay, it's working out well. You know that much. We'll find out a little bit more about what that was coming up. In the middle, Lawrence Ford. Lawrence runs Conscious Capital Wealth Management. You've been called the shaman of Wall Street from the Washington Post. Why do they call you the shaman of Wall Street? What is your connection to conscious capitalism?
So you start with the easy question. Yeah. I can see. So when we look at conscious capitalism, let's break it down. We just take a look at the two different words. And so let's start with the capitalism. So capitalism is the most powerful.
They want you to talk louder.
Okay.
You have to do this.
They're saying, Lawrence, louder.
I'm getting this from everybody.
I usually get it the other way around. So, okay, you guys let me know if I'm too loud. So what I was saying is that when we break down the term conscious capitalism and we look at those two different definitions, what we're looking at is the two most powerful things that exist in our world today. And let's take capitalism first. So capitalism is the most powerful tool man has created. It has lifted millions from poverty and done wonderful things. But I think many of us would not challenge too much that in many ways it's been weaponized. So, and by the way, when we look at money, it stopped being backed by gold in the early 70s, so it's really something we just made up. And we've agreed on it, and we've agreed on these terms of capitalism. And so as business owners in the room, we have a wonderful responsibility of creating business for good or not. And now let's break down consciousness for a minute. When we look at consciousness, what does that really mean? And Barry was referring to some of it this morning beautifully, but it's really about what intention we come from and where we come from. And so when I was called the shaman of Wall Street, and have been many different times, it's because my bridge is using and connecting the deep internal motivations or spiritual dynamics of individuals with the outside of capitalism. And so as you were discussing, Gavin, it's when you come to work and you're engaged and you're excited and when your soul is in alignment with what you're doing. And I think we all know what that means. When you're truly doing something you love, there's this energy about you that is infectious. And the exact opposite of that is statistics that my friend Raj Sisodio talks about all the time, which is, what is the highest rate of heart attacks? When do they happen? Well, it's Monday mornings, and isn't that a sad state of affairs? So bringing consciousness and capitalism together is really my passion in building that bridge between sometimes looked at two strange bedfellows, but I think the reason those two aren't brought together is a big part of the challenges we have in our world today.
Thank you, Larry. Next question we have is for the three of you. We'll hit briefly on this, but it involves today's theme, which is purpose and profit today. You've got higher values in your company, but how does that filter down to the bottom line? Does it create profit? You've got employees that are engaged. You've got maybe a better relationship with your customers and your partners. How does it work out for your profits behind the scene?
Well, it's interesting because, we talked about that earlier. It's really, trying to create a culture that is as positive as you can make it, and you're really caring about your employees. So I don't look at conscious capitalism or really just creating a good environment as profit to the bottom line. I how does the company succeed, right? It's about creativity. It's about controlling your cost. It's about really tapping into the best of all the employees, whether they are making a tea bag on the manufacturing floor or they're coming up with what the new line is going to be. And by creating an environment where they feel really good about what they're doing and they feel engaged and really respected. And a lot of this is just really letting the employees know how much you respect and need them. You're getting the best out of them. So they are putting in those hours, but they want to be putting in those hours. And they are caring about how that tea bag is made. And for us, we're about 400 employees, of which 300 of them are in the manufacturing arena, making a tea bag 10 hours a day. That's not an easy job. And yet they care so much. So you know it's a good thing. You know you've created the right environment when you have an operator who we now have their name on the bottom of every box says, shut this line down, and the mechanic says why, and the operator says, this is a true story, recently happened in our Louisville plant. And the operator said, well, because the foil is a little bit out of line. And the mechanic says to her, but it's within spec. And she says, that's my name on the box. Shut down that line or take my name off the box. And that's not profit at the bottom, but it's quality that eventually leads to that consistency that leads to profit. So creating that environment where they really care and they're committed because they know you care about them, they care about you, you know that they could work anywhere, especially in today's environment. People could leave Bigelow Tea like that. We are not top dollar. There's just not enough money in a tea bag to be paying what some of these other companies can pay. But if we can create that environment where they care that much, where you have an operator say to a mechanic, shut that line down, it's got my name on it, then that to me is the profit, the benefit, the ROI, whatever you want to say, about creating that special environment.
Gavin, how do you create that?
So, the two things really go really well together. So the creating that kind of environment and profitability, they just go completely hand in hand. There's absolutely no reason why one doesn't go with the other. And the reason is this, is because everybody who, everybody, all of us are motivated by a couple different things. One is extrinsic motivators. Those are the carrots and sticks that the traditional companies would use to try to get us to do what they want us to do. We're also motivated by intrinsic motivation. So those are the things that we do because we want to do them, right? And there's no better day on earth when you come to work and you can do the things that you do really well and help out your team and your group. When you can bring that to your group and, because it's what they need, that's the perfect day. So, when you look at the profitability of something, when you have people who are so excited to help out and to do what they do really well, that works that's an amazing thing. And the key, there's three key things that make this happen. The first one is autonomy. You have to give people autonomy to do their jobs, right? You can't you've got to share information. That's the second thing. Just share information, tell them what's going on, and learn all the time. And if you do those three things and you give people autonomy to figure things out and to make the improvements and to figure out what they're going to do every day, they'll keep doing it and they'll keep making improvements all the time. Because when you think about it, that intrinsic motivation that I'm getting from doing something for my group, that's a gift, right? That's a gift that I give to my group. I can't give it if you demand it of me, right? But I can give it freely if I'm not required to do it. So I have to have autonomy for that to work. So autonomy is critical, sharing information so people know what they're doing, what needs to be done, pushing the decision-making and the information to the people who are actually doing the work. That's the critical part. And once you do those things, then everything gets much, much more efficient. It's amazing how much better everything can run.
In our next questions, we'll get a little more specific on that because I know there's some specifics with both of you we've talked about before. Lawrence, you run a financial company. How does this work? How does being conscious and a conscious capitalism student work with your bottom line in your financial company?
Yeah, so we actually have a beautiful organization that gets to be able to see both sides. So we have a very simple principle at Conscious Capital Wealth Management, and that is that beyond basic needs, money is useless unless it's supporting your dreams, your purpose, and your reason for being here, and, oh, by the way, aligning with your values. And so at Conscious Capital Wealth Management, our advisors in traditional industry, it's filled with a lot of fear, greed, obfuscation, bullying, way too much testosterone, way too many old white guys in the business. And so it's ripe for change, and we are really leading that change. So the advisors that we have come work with us not only get to live their dreams of helping their lives be better and aligning it, but also that's what we do in working with individuals. Now, when we get down to the real basics of this, when we talk about values in the investments, and we can probably dig down in this a little bit more later, but it's really important to hear this. And that is when you look at the public equity market and the public debt market, the stocks and the bonds of the world, we are reaching this amazing, amazing place today where you can do good and do well with your investments. And things like we call alpha and beta measurements as we look at individual stock analysis and bond analysis, we can take those otherwise typically dismissed, ooey gooey, fuzzy qualitative things like how much people love their companies or making sure that foil's all corrected on the assembly line, and really measuring those things for good, which then gives us alpha or increase in potential stock analysis. So we can do well and do good at the same time when we're looking at stocks. So that's really, really exciting. In other words, we tell companies it is X, let's say it's 9:30 in the morning. Do you know where your investments are? And if you don't, most good people would rather not have their money investing in third world countries where children are making your products, as Barry was discussing this morning with a hat. So being conscious about where your money goes now no longer is a cost to you, but it's also this incredible opportunity. There's also the beta or the risk side of that too. Just news that came out this morning that I was reading, Bayer that bought Monsanto is just up against a lawsuit right now for about, I think Bayer bought Monsanto for about $63 billion. So the first lawsuit got settled, and they're looking at those lawsuits potentially being upwards of $800 billion because of the pesticide they were using. So when you look at, those type of companies would not be in a conscious portfolio. So you're also hedging your downside risk. So some really practical, exciting things that are happening in the world today that you can all individually do amongst all the noise of doom and gloom and confusion.
Thank you, Lawrence. Now, we've talked about the ideas here involved with being conscious about where your money goes and how it works. But let's get specific for a second. It's easy to think about the ideas when it comes down to walking into the building and seeing how to implement those ideas. Then it becomes difficult. Cindi, we talked about you have a corporate, the pillars. Is that the correct word? Yeah. The Bigelow home.
Yeah, the Bigelow home.
How does that filter? How do you explain that to your employees? How does that work in your corporate culture?
Well, it's interesting. Again, years ago, as in my position and all of us, we try to make sure, how do we get the message all the way through, in my case, throughout the entire organization, because I could sit here, whatever, in my position in my office and sort of spout off, aren't we amazing? And is it really making it to the employee that's working that 10 hours on the weekend shift, right? So in thinking about that, I kept saying, our purpose is more than just a tea bag. It's just more than a tea bag. And I continually am talking about that, but what do I create so that everyone sort of has this something to hold on to, with the point being that how does it also give everybody a voice to speak back, which is very lofty, but it was something you want to try to at least aspire to do. So I created what I call the Bigelow home, and I made it for every employee. It took about 2 years to create the home. I worked with many different groups, but eventually it did boil down to, excuse the expression, boil down. By the way, everything Barry was saying, thank God I make tea. Oh my gosh. But anyway, so it took about 2 years, and actually there is one of these when you leave, just, might not be of any interest to everybody, but this is something that, again, everyone at Bigelow gets a home, but this is available when we have guests come. And it was my way of sort of creating what that purpose was, which is really to, what am I trying to do? Why do I get up in the morning? And as much as I love tea, I don't get up in the morning every day to make a tea bag. I get up in the morning because I'm trying to create an environment which brings out everybody's ability and desire to make a difference every single day. And from that falls out that uncompromising quality tea bag, which if you think about it, is for everyday moments, to make an everyday moment special. And then we have our pillars and our vision and our guiding principles. But what's the base of the home are the values. And brainstorm with different people, put in what I thought I couldn't get rid of. And I had a lot of people tell me, too many values, Cindi, you can only have 3 to 5. And I said, who only has 3 to 5 values? You can't tell me how many values I can have. But the point of the values was what I want the company to either be or to aspire to be. And this is the voice for the everyday person that works at Bigelow Tea. If they're seeing some of these values that we're not adhering to, or we're not really, we think we're doing, but we're not, they have a chance to say it. And how do you make that happen? So every single review, every single supervisor and manager has no choice, sit with their employee and say, okay, you have to tell me, what values can we do better? And then they have to be quiet. And they have to wait until the employee says, well, to be honest, you guys talk about transparency, but there's a lot of closed door conversations and they make us very uncomfortable. They write that down. And then we roll that up and we talk about how do we do that better? And then we go back to the different teams, whether they're managers, supervisors, floor, sales and marketing. And we say, these are the values that are starting to resonate. First of all, thank you. Always thank you for sharing with us those values. Thank you that you saw we could do better. Because without you telling us, we can't be better. Now, here's some of our thoughts. We need your help on this. Here's some of our thoughts. And this is a constant conversation at our company. These values, I will not let them go. So the Bigelow home has been a wonderful way for me to ensure everyone knows what the purpose is and also the values for us to talk back about where we're really not performing, where I think we should be aspiring to be. So I love the Bigelow home.
Ballpark figures, Cindi. How many employees do you have?
We have about 400 employees.
About 400
a little
employees.
over 400 employees.
And do they all subscribe to this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, I mean, gosh. What are they going to tell me?
You made 400 Lucite plaques. They might as well.
I mean, they tell me they love it, but they have to. No, but I mean, you see this on everybody's desk. You know what's nice? You see it in people's lockers. So again, in the manufacturing area, they open up their locker if they see this. That's important. We have them, there's a lot of drama that goes with these things. We have big posters of it and everybody signs it. So to me, that's a one and done. Big deal. You have one of these now. Now, how do you make it come alive? So it's my job to keep it alive, like literally almost every single day. I'm like a values maniac.
If you suspect they're not going along with the plan, will you take it back?
Gee, I haven't thought about doing that yet, but there are occasionally I will see individuals that don't quite get the value of the values, and I might want to do a little
Take it back.
clunking.
Give them a smaller one. Thank you, Cindi. Gavin. Now we get to talk about. And Gavin, what is your? You've got a couple of degrees, not necessarily strictly business degrees.
So I started off as a psychology major and ended up changing to religious studies major.
So from psychology to religious studies, which is a pretty big shift in itself.
And then
And now you're running the company. Well, you're one of the family members running the company.
Right. So and I do a lot of engineering work. So it's one of those crazy things. You start off one way and you end up somewhere else.
So specifically, and we can touch on what it was we teased a little while ago. What are some of the values? What are some of the concrete things, in this case, less than concrete, that you've brought into the company?
Sure. So one of the things we did, and this truthfully didn't start as something, like, oh, let's do this because it fits with, something. I was really coming at it more for like, what can we do to help people extend their paycheck, and make their lives a little bit better. So one of the things we thought was, I had a garden when I was, a teenager, and I said, maybe what we should do is we should plow up the front yard, and we start a garden, and then so it's been going on for 3 years now. Christina back there, who's videotaping this, won't want me to point her out, but she's one of the gardeners, and she helps out a lot with it. So we have about 330 employees, about 300 or so in Connecticut, and about 60 people have a plot in the garden.
So let me, you dug up
Yeah.
the landscaping around your company.
Yeah, it wasn't great landscaping.
It wasn't
Yeah,
great
we dug it up,
landscaping,
yeah.
but you dug up the landscaping
Yeah.
and you made garden plots for all your employees.
Yeah. So we dug it up. We checked the soil, adjusted the pH a little bit, threw down some compost, put in some irrigation systems, some landscape cloth, got a fence and stuff like that, and basically just invited people to come and if they wanted to and put in a plot. And set stuff up. And we bought.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I haven't been to your actual where your company is. Do you have other companies around it?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you tell them ahead of time what it was you were going to do?
No.
Did you get some of the other companies kind of looking over, going, Gavin, what's with all the digging over there?
Not really. Not that I know. But
Okay.
we've been trying to get some. We have been having garden parties and trying to sort of stir up this idea to see if we can get other companies nearby to do something similar.
Have your employees set up vegetable stands to sell vegetables to the other companies?
No, they haven't been doing that. But so what's been great is, say Lawrence and I, worked at this, at the company, and maybe Lawrence works in the analytical lab and I work on the manufacturing floor, and now we've got a plot, adjoining plots or whatever, and Lawrence is from some exotic country that I've never been before, and he's growing these weird things. What's this stuff? And I'm growing other stuff, and people are trading tips. Or maybe I know nothing at all about gardening, but Cindi, she says, I do this all the time. Whatever, I'll show you how to do it or whatever. So Cindi and I do a joint plot, and we work this thing together. So people are meeting each other. There's 300 people or so in the Connecticut area, who work for us, and now they're meeting each other. Maybe some of them for the first time, sharing all kinds of ideas. And then my sister Moira gets more involved. And Moira is very good at philanthropic things and stuff like that. Her heart's totally in the right place all the time. So she says, you know what? We should dedicate a section of the garden for the Connecticut Food Bank, and wheat, which is the West Haven Food Bank. So the people who are in the garden and have their own garden plots are also now taking care of this about 25% of the garden, which is food is going to the Connecticut Food Bank and these other places. And then this year, they invited a school group in. These are kids who are like on the spectrum. And they come in and they help take care of the Connecticut Food Bank part. They have their own plot. They bring the stuff back to their own school and prepare meals with it. So it's really become this big thing that we're all doing, which just came out of nothing except for this thought like, oh wow, wouldn't it be easy to just have something in this garden in front of the building, and then during your lunch break you could tend it and grab some tomatoes on the way out of on the way home and not have to stop by the grocery store. And it's turned into this other thing, which is it's really nice, and everybody's having a fantastic time with it.
That's a great story. I don't know if anybody else has any similar ways of operating like that, but we're going to have a question and answer period. So I'd love to hear some suggestions as well. Lawrence, you run a financial company. You're at the top. You've got to teach your people how to embrace this philosophy. How is that received? You speak to people in the United Nations. You speak, you educate. But how is that received both with your customers and globally? How do they receive this?
Yeah, beautifully is the simple answer. I think,
Did you say beautifully?
Beautifully.
Beautifully. Excellent.
Yeah. Everybody, I think people are longing for authenticity. We saw that little clip of that negotiations, and it's mind-blowing, but unfortunately, that's how a lot of business is conducted, right? What can I get from you? What am I going to get from myself? And so we find when we fundamentally change the conversation. So I'll tell you a little bit of story just about how I got there. So when I got out of college, I looked around and I saw that money controlled people, and I felt it should be the other way around. And as a entrepreneur, I just decided to go do it and realize how difficult it was later, and then not swayed by the challenges, as I'm sure many of you in business here in this audience know. You just drive through with a deeper purpose. And so Wall Street loves shiny things, and at one point, a whole bunch of years ago, I was one of the top in the industry, and they flew us to this castle out in the mountains in Banff, Canada. And I was standing backstage with 9 other top producers, top advisors in the country, and about 2,500 other advisors out front with all the shiny lights and flashy things. And standing backstage, and at that point, I think I was about 30 or 31, 32 years old, something like that. All the other 9 gentlemen standing backstage with me were old like me now. And they were all standing to the other side, and I'm standing there with my glass of rum trying to pull it off like I was really comfortable with myself, with my badge of courage around my neck, which was our big medal. And soon all the herd started walking over towards me, led by the lead guy. And he got up in my face and he said, "So kid, tell me, what's your secret? How'd you make it here so quick?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, really no secret. We just love every client." And they all walked away. And that's when I knew I was a zebra in a herd of horses. And, really might more quite appropriately for today, I think more like a butterfly in a pack of caterpillars. And so when we look at this room here and what excites me about being on the panel, these wonderful people, and I know because I've been in many rooms where most of you could be on the panel as well, I'm sure, saying exactly what we're saying, is that we are collecting into a new consciousness and a new way of doing business, which makes really good sense and it makes the world a better place. This pin on my lapel here is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I've been speaking recently for the United Nations and we'll be heading up a summit, a global summit next year, which will continue on beyond that. And if you want to hear about that, please reach out to us. But it will be specifically on consciousness and capitalism, representing the best companies, the best investment side, and the best thought leaders in consciousness as well around the globe, which to me is the most important thing and what conscious capitalism stands for. But when I go back to that story about the butterfly, just quick if I may, there's the wonderful story about the butterfly and the caterpillar. And so a caterpillar, all of its organisms inside of the caterpillar operate in this perfect dance to keep the caterpillar a caterpillar. All the organs trigger at the right time. They all dance together nicely. And then there's this little thing, this little cell that comes up, which is an imaginal cell, and it's a butterfly cell. And all of the imaginal cells of all the caterpillar cells say, "What the hell is this?" And their immune system says, "No, let's push it out. Let's destroy it. Let's kill it." It's their job to keep the caterpillar healthy. And so after a little while, what happens is the imaginal cells join together. And as they join together, they get stronger and it gets more difficult for the caterpillar cells and immune system to kill them. Until comes that wonderful day when the imaginal cells get strong enough and then the caterpillar dies. And of course, then we become a butterfly. And the beauty of this is, what the heck does the caterpillar know about butterflies, right? They're just doing their job. And I look at that a lot like we're all doing here today in this room. This is a room full of butterflies. And what we need to do is just come together to coalesce, to join each other, to break the old rules and the old paradigm of thought of business of where we all compete and win against one another at another loss. Because that's a lie, just like the fundamentals, and forgive the academics in the room. When I say this in business schools, it's sometimes not so popular, but the basic fundamentals of supply and demand is a lie. And our whole capitalism system is built on a lie, because there is truly abundance. And so we need to just shift that paradigm of thought and all come together. And so I'm really excited about being here with everybody here who is, I know, here for a reason and doing the same thing, and we need to come together to be stronger. And so I'm not sure if I answered the question, but conscious capital, that's what we do. So when people show up, I have to continually remind people to go home because we're so excited about making the world better. And you know what that one is, Gavin, right? Got to remind people to go home, and I'm sure you too, Cindi.
Thank you. Now, in true transparency, Lawrence is going to ask you a question with the microphones off, but I'll ask it. Did you have an exercise for us today?
I'm sorry,
An
say that again?
exercise? Did you have a thinking exercise for us?
Oh,
Do
Yeah,
you have something for us?
We'd like to.
All right. We're going to do a question and answer period here. But before we do that, I see people circulating around the room. Lawrence wants to help us. This is something you do with your employees, correct?
Yeah, well, sorry, now I'm too loud. Not only employees, but it's something that I do when it's the right time and we're speaking. Sometimes I did it in front of, which was one of the fun things, in front of almost all of Wall Street in Chicago at Morningstar. So yeah, it's
all right. Just before we do our questions and answers, it's like a little mental break.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
So this is chill out time. So the ancient wisdom will tell us when they come here, and you can obviously tell by my title, I've been very blessed to work with some of the greatest teachers around the world. Many of them are older and indigenous with great wisdom that we have lost as a culture. But when they come here, they will be aghast. And the last time I did this was at Thomson Reuters in Times Square, and this really is a highlight of it. But they'll be aghast because they'll look around and it looks like they'll say, "Oh my God, everybody is asleep. Everybody's sleepwalking." And they literally will look at us and say, "Oh my goodness, we're all sleepwalking." And so what they mean by that is typically, if you do some introspection, which we're going to do now, and you look at your mind and you take yourself out of your thoughts, most of us are incessantly thinking about something in the future or something in the past. And so when you hear me speak about this, everybody sleepwalking, it can seem to be something very ethereal, but it's something very, very real. And when we talk about the depth of consciousness, when we are asleep, how can we be conscious with our actions? And so let me give you a little bit of, and one other thing I will say to you before we start this is when you have the hands on the helm of capitalism, which is one of the most powerful tools man has created, and then you are asleep while you're steering, well, no wonder we are in the shape we are in some cases around our world with money and capitalism. So there's just a fun little exercise I'd like to share with everybody. And like most profound things from ancient wisdom, it's very simple, but it's also very profound if you try it out and use it on your own. So we're going to do this just for about 3 minutes, and it will help us all come present and be here for question and answer. And so just get yourself comfortable, sit in your seat in a nice, comfortable way, take a couple deep breaths. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and demonstrate for you how you're going to do this. I did this one time and I forgot to tell people that you don't say it out loud like I'm going to. That was quite interesting with 1,000 people talking about their thoughts out loud. And I went, hold on. So I'm going to do that for you, but you guys will do this in silence. So I'm going to sit here. I'm going to close my eyes. And I'm going to, what the shamans will call, stalk yourself. Kids today use a different term on that, and it's not such a pleasant term, but it's called stalking yourself. So you're looking at your thoughts. And so what you're going to do when you look at your thoughts is you're going to play a little game, and you're going to label your thought when you catch them as either future thought, a past thought, or a present thought. And then also give yourself the gift of, I don't know thought or a dream, so you don't hang on to it too long. When you catch that thought, you're going to take a breath in, and then you're going to literally breathe that thought out. So I will show you how that's done, and then we're going to do that all together. Okay? Here's my warning label. These are unfiltered, so I will just practice live. It can be dangerous. So that's a present thought, and I'm thinking about how blessed I am to be here with all of you today. Next thought is about my incredibly large list that I need to get to this afternoon, and that is a future thought. And for some strange reason, I just went to my oatmeal breakfast this morning. And that's a past thought. So we get it? Any questions? Good. And if you get a little confused and can't find your thoughts, just be playful. Remember to play. So I will have someone time this, and we'll do just 1 minute. So let's begin.
And your 60 seconds is now up. I'd beep, but I can't.
So I'm sure there were future thoughts, past thoughts, and present thoughts. The thing to take away with yourself is not about judgment, about how many I had right or how many I had wrong. It's truly just about becoming present with yourself, which is the most profound thing you can do. And from my point of view, we're all here for a reason. Like truly, not just like some kind of fancy new age story. We're truly all here for a reason, and we all matter. And by becoming present like that, then you can actually be here and then give your gift back with the world. So thank you. Thanks everybody for playing and for being here today.
Larry, thank you. I'd like to open up the floor for any questions. What's your first name?
JP.
JP. Okay, JP.
I'm actually on the board of Conscious Capitalism in New York City. So thank you.
You're on the board of Conscious Capitalism in New York City. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm on the board of Conscious Capitalism in New York City, and this is a great turnout. So thank you guys all for supporting the cause and going after the rest of the team. Great job. I had a quick question. We live in an era now of deep mistrust. We don't trust a lot of our institutions, media, education, government, and I think that's an opportunity for business leaders, especially those who are conscious businesses, to kind of step into that void. And I guess my question is, do you see opportunities for yourselves as conscious leaders, or either to have a mandate to, or the opportunity or the responsibility to speak up on really controversial topics that we see in today's very divisive environment? Thank you.
That's a great question. You know, well, first of all, I think as leaders, we're supposed to be, as I used the term earlier, role modeling on that everyone's focus and thought process and different opinions need to be allowed in the room. So that means you need to have a presence of tolerance, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't message every single chance I can in front of the employees about inclusiveness, about kindness, about understanding, about thoughtfulness, and that it is something that I know for a fact when you establish that as sort of the milieu, the energy that you create around it, the employees will follow. They do listen to what you have to say, good, bad, or ugly. They will listen to what you have to say. So it's very important as leaders that we are, in my opinion, messaging about inclusion and just kindness in general. That doesn't mean things aren't tough and times aren't tough and businesses we don't have to deal with things. But then you talk about those as well. I mean, I think it's about honest and respect for the employees. You know, I believed in honesty as I was moving up to get to the leadership position. The president before me would get in front of the employees, and I know the way he would word things, good man, okay, really good man. But the way he worded it, I knew more information behind that, and I really didn't think that that was 100% the truth. So I would then follow up after him and get in front of the employees. And this is years before we got to this current environment. And I would just sort of steer them back to 100% really what the truth was, respectful of, he was just trying to do what he thought was best. But the employees learned that they could trust me, that I was always going to be honest with them. And I think that whatever, again, particular political position they're in, they do like this environment of honesty, kindness, and tolerance. And I think that's what we need to do as leaders. We need to, every chance we can, message to everyone that'll listen about what it means to be a positive, thoughtful leader.
So great question. And we live that on the front end by empowering people and asking people to express their values with their money. So in an industry that is traditionally non-transparent in many different ways, we rip the cover off and we really want to have those candid conversations. In other words, it's probably 10 o'clock now, where do you know where your investments are, right? So, and if you don't, find out. So we actually frame it with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in a very positive way. The old school way was about, and not necessarily bad, but environmental, social governance, and taking a look at those metrics, which are very important, but tended to be more exclusionary in nature. And we now look at very positive things on top of that. So I think by empowering that way individuals, we help them express that, kind of put your money where your mouth is or where your heart is. On the back end side, I'd like to say just briefly, it's an incredibly exciting time because hiding is not an option anymore. And Wall Street's getting undressed. And it's called blockchain. And if you are not familiar with blockchain technology, don't confuse it with cryptocurrencies necessarily. Blockchain technology is phenomenal. We are going to be able to understand all the way down the supply chain of stakeholders to how the woman in the fields is being treated picking the cacao. Did you hear that? No more hiding. And that's going to be one of the greatest revolutions I think we're going to see in a long time. So not only the positive leaders, are going to be leading by example, but the ones who are leading by their own example that's dying, the old caterpillars, will be exposed rapidly through technology. So great question.
One of the things that I love about today is that word conscious. And again, it shouldn't be a movement. It should be a way to live. And, everyone in this room, I was thinking about that when we were doing our little, where are our heads at? And I said, are we providing you the tools that you need to leave here and be in a better place, whatever that looks like? And to me, it's just about being conscious every moment of every day, which is hard to do, but a phenomenal way to live life. So the individual that says, gee, can I take your coat? Looking them in the eye and going, gosh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and meaning it, right? The individual that in your grocery store, if by chance they are still bagging for you, you say, gosh, thank you so much. Can I help you? Every moment of every day, we can be conscientious to make a difference with the person that's in front of us. What a great way to live. What a great way to wake up that person that's in front of you that might be sleeping or having a really bad day. How many times you're in front of somebody and they're really not that nice and you kind of want to go at it. And you just say, I'm going to give it one more chance. And then I'm going to give it one more chance. And then all of a sudden, how many times do they go, they sort of wake up and they go, wow. And all of a sudden you go, oh God, I did it. And we can do it. We have those tools. It's just being conscious. So if there's any tool you leave with today, I don't care who's in front of you. I don't care who's in front of you. I remember years ago when we used to put the 25 cents into the toll. Remember those days? Yeah. I used to lean across from the passenger. Thank you. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. But because I felt like that person, nobody speaks to that person. They don't even exist. They're getting fumes. Who knows what their health's going to be like, but they're taking your quarter. So just thank them. Just be awake. So if there's anything you get from today, from that fantastic exercise, just be awake and you make a difference every single step you take. Don't forget it.
So it's very nicely done.
That's perfect. I would just also add that there's all of us are different. There's all these different personalities, right? And That's essential. If you think about our human evolution, if every single one of us was essentially the same and there wasn't any difference, we'd totally fail. Because we'd all make the same mistakes over and over again, right? But because we're all different, we can help each other out, we can catch each other, right? And we can see things that the other one doesn't see. So we all need each other, we all need those different personalities, and we all need to respect those different personalities. And a lot of times, a lot of this divisiveness and everything, we think, it's because somebody has like something and they can't see the other side of the thing. And I have a hard time seeing the other side of things too. If you look at my personality profile, I'm pretty extreme. I have to, I work with people who are completely on the other end of the range of stuff, right? And I know I need them, because they're the ones who are going to spot the flaws in the things that I think are like perfect, right? They're going to see that stuff and help me out with it. So one of the things that I left a paper out by the front there, if you want to pick it up. Because one of the things I have to struggle with is all these different personalities and these different viewpoints. And so that really forced me to have to really articulate really well and explain why this stuff works. So, like if you've got a gut feeling, we all have a gut feeling, we would just do this. If there was no science at all, we would just do it anyway, right? So, because we just feel it. But there is science behind this. There is science why this stuff works. So there's, if you want to take a look at that, it might help you to explain some things to some other people who, just going like this warm, fuzzy, peace nut, peace and granola kinds of stuff. But no, what are you guys doing? It's going to sink the company, right? It's not. It's not going to sink the company, and there's evidence that, it's good.
We have a question, okay? Here, you want to come up here? Would you like to get into the $50 chair?
Come sit next to me.
Come on up. What's your name? Ronnie Raben, New Haven Biz. Hi, Ronnie. Bryan Smith. Thanks. Nice to meet you. Have a seat. Look. Oh, don't sit on this.
Do you not just love this? She just sat down up here next to us.
This is an expensive whoopee cushion.
Here you go.
All right. That's Lawrence giving you his lavalier. Hi.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Too loud?
quite well, yes.
Okay. So my question is that I'm hearing a lot about the leadership and your inspiration and the kind of values that you share with your companies. But I'm curious to know, it sounds like there's a lot of good communication going on. And Gavin, as you were just talking about the idea that you're processing things that are needed because people are bringing a different point of view or some different information. My question is, how do you work with the actual flow? What is the system, more the nuts and bolts, less the philosophy of your organization, and how you might be different than the traditional top-down management style? So each of you has a vision for your company. Each of you has a core set of values that you're transmitting. But what about the other way around? How does that work?
Sure. So, one of the in the area of the business where we're doing the edible glitter and all the decorative stuff, that part of the business has been growing really fast. So one of the issues that we had was, how are we going to keep going? How are we going to keep, the orders going out in time and everything? Because to install another line is like a year and a half and maybe $5 million or whatever worth of equipment to do that. So I'm faced with this problem. I'm trying to figure it out. And so I did what I've done before, which works really, really well. And we had an open space meeting. So I see nods over here. The School of Management or whatever, so he knows that, right? So this guy, Harrison Owen, came up with this thing back in the 1980s called an open space meeting. Basically what you do is you just tell people, look, here's the issue, this is the problem, this is the thing we need to work on, and then you invite people to come. So the people who show up are the right people. When it starts, it's the right time, and whatever happens is the only thing that could have happened. That's what Harrison Owen says about it. So what you get is, think about autonomy as I talk about this. So the people who come are the right people, right? So I just let it know that this is a thing that we need to talk about. We have a time and a place. People show up. We sit in a circle, and because everybody's equal, And then if you've got an idea that you think will help out with this, you get up and you stand in the middle of the circle and you say, hi, I'm Gavin, I have this idea. I think that we should work on this XYZ process or whatever, because I think that there's time that we could be saved there. And then you go and you put that piece of paper on the wall, right? So the wall is a time and space thing. So we've got different times across the top, different spaces, places where people can meet, and I just pick one and I stick it there. Everybody who wants to, everybody who thinks that they've got an idea stands up and says, hi, I'm so-and-so, this is, my thought, whatever, and they put that up on the wall. When everybody who wants to has said what it is that they want to do, then you open the marketplace. So that's when people then are free to go and sign up for whichever meetings that they want to go to, right? So then they go to those meetings, they sign up on it. There's a little negotiation. Oh, yours is at the same time as mine. Can we move this? That kind of stuff goes on. You get it all settled down. People then go and just do it. So they have the meetings. They record what they talked about, what decisions they made. We used to do those big 3M, pad things and stuff like that. And then those go out on another wall, like a newsroom, so that people can go and look and see what the teams have talked about, what it is that they've decided to do. At the end of the whole thing, we wrap all of that stuff up. And then, in this case, because it was about a particular part of the business, we took all of those big sheets and we put them in the hallway outside of where those manufacturing rooms are. And people looked at those things, looked at the things on the list that they knew that they could do. And so individuals or groups of people would sign up for, I got this one. This one's mine, I got it, whatever. And they would put those things, they would sign their names up on it. And when they knew that, when it was done, they would write it was done. That way, anybody walking down the hall could see what the issues were that we wanted to work on, what processes we wanted to improve, who was working on them. So if I wanted to join, somebody else's team or whatever, I'd know who to talk to work on that thing. And at the end of it, in about 2 weeks' time, we had about 15 to 20% more capacity. So I didn't tell anybody what to do. I didn't bring a list to the meeting. It's a little bit freaky. If you're like one of those control people, it is really scary, okay? I'm fortunately for me, I'm not. So I can you just have to chill. You're sitting there in a circle and you're thinking, I hope somebody stands up and says something, right? Because it's totally out of your control, right? But people will step up, they come up with creative ideas and they imagine things that are just incredible. So that's just an example of a thing, that we do that, it's a different way of doing it. So it's not top down, it's, everybody coming up with ideas together. And it's easy. It's a great thing to do.
Great answer.
Thank you, Gavin. Yeah. Thanks for being part of the Ronnie show. Ronnie, you don't have to leave. We have another question back here. I'm not sure if that microphone works. Uh-oh.
You can talk loud.
It's a prank microphone. Would you like to come up and sit in the expensive chair? You do have a choir voice. I hear that. Would you like to sing your question? What's your name?
Well,
wow.
We actually do that now. Yeah. We're zero waste to landfill, so we do a tremendous amount of composting. So, Gavin, I am so happy to bring my stuff up to your place. So we'll be up there tomorrow. Trust me, and we got a lot of stuff we compost.
Yeah. And I have been to Cindi's place about a year ago with a business sustainability challenge thing with UI, and they are amazing. Everything gets recycled. It's incredible. So it's an amazing job. Yeah.
You're a tremendous thinker. Are you sure you don't want to come up and do the chair?
I don't trust myself to walk up the stairs gracefully. The question that I have is, a lot of times when we're talking about being conscious, there's a lot of uncomfortable conversations that can lead to being more conscious and doing better. So my question is to you, as leaders, what is the story is helpful. So what is an uncomfortable conversation that you have had that has helped you change your perspective and go on to do better things? The question for each of you.
Well,
Cindi, Lawrence, Gavin? Cindi, you're going to take it?
You're so right. I'm not going to choose to share exact examples because they are uncomfortable, and I would not want to make it's not one of those things you just start throwing out that term to a room and they all accept it, right? That's whatever. But I think that you need to be messaging all the time, right? So if I need more diversity, my executive team, I need to first start kind of small and share that in a smaller setting and kind of let them get comfortable with that terminology, and then continue that conversation every opportunity that we can. But again, my opinion, I think we just need to be sensitive how the other person perceives it. So I think we need to have these conversations, but I don't think we should just, ramrod the conversation into the room. We should be thoughtful to how a person might think, and maybe they have no idea that they're maybe a little blind to certain other thought processes. So I believe sort of in a gentle introduction and then constantly staying on message.
I will add something that's closely related to that, but it's as a leader, being courageously vulnerable. Courageously vulnerable is so important, because if you let your people see you, then it gives them permission to be seen, right? And you create beyond a safe environment, you create a sacred environment, and it's just known. And then for those of the people who know me, you flip to the whole other side of it, and it's really cool to play a lot. So we have balls we throw around and stuff because things get tense, right? So you got to play and you got to have a good time. And the whole stress about being perfect, especially around the work we do, when we talk about aligning values and money, it's like, oh my God. There's the guilt, there's the, oh my God, the old belief of it's like going to be losing money and putting money in a collection plate, whatever that thought process is. I like to loosen it up a little bit, and I tell people that I'm a vegan who eats fish when I feel like it, cheese once in a while, and last time I looked, this was a dead cow around my waist. So it's not about being perfect, it's about being conscious and making conscious choices.
Yeah.
Very nice. Gavin, did you want to add to that?
I'd echo that too. Maybe 2-3 weeks ago, it was a Friday afternoon. I was really frustrated. I was venting about some stuff, and all weekend it was bugging me that I did that. So like the Monday morning, very first thing, as soon as I knew that another employee came in, I went right to him and I said, "Louis, I apologize. I was such a jerk on Friday. I don't know. Yeah, I was terrible." And, I just apologized to him because I really was. I was a jerk. So, and the other thing that I think happens too in management, I can, somebody can make a mistake and cost a few $100s. I can make a mistake and cost $50,000. No sweat. That's easy for me to do. So, I need to also own that like I can do really big screw ups. So, it's important to recognize that and for management to the first thing you do when you think there's a problem, hold up the mirror. Look at yourself, make sure that, did I do everything I could do to make sure that thing didn't happen? Did I really write those instructions well? Did I really explain what needed to be done? Because usually the answer is no, not really. It takes a few iterations to get it right.
It's nice to hear that from all of you. Gavin, it's nice. An expensive screw up. I like to hear that. We're getting close to the final round. We're going to spin here and put the consonants and vowels up. But we do have a few more questions. How many more people have questions? I see a few. 1, 2, 3. Do we have time? Do we want to go a little over time? What I'll do is I'll ask you to make your questions concise, and panelists, one-word answers. Kidding. Sir, what choir do you sing in? Oh, that's not working. All right. What's your name?
My name is Paul Maya. I have an organizational transformation business called NC. And of course, I work a lot with IT organizations. And in IT organizations, you have a lot of introverts. That's no secret. Okay. But recently, I heard Forrester Research talk about the number one performance indicator that they found is something, Gavin, that you mentioned, which I love, which is the perfect day, or creating what they call flow.
Right.
You can produce, if you can allow your employees to tap into what they do best and then clear the block that, I believe, is consciousness in the organization to allow people to do what they do best, which makes them high intrinsic value to the organization.
One word, right?
You can add a few. Okay, a few more.
Woo, way, woo. Woo, woo, way, woo. It's a ancient Taoist term that literally translated means doing, not doing. It's the ultimate state when you're for the athlete in flow, right? For a lot of religion talks about grace. It's when the dancer becomes the dance. It's the space between the notes that make the song. It's the highest state of existence. And so knowing that and putting a light on that, being conscious of that as a goal, is something that is illuminated in our organization. So woo, way, woo would be my word.
Do you guys want to add to that?
I would just, I just look at it a little bit differently. I don't really know if any day's the perfect day, although every day could be the perfect day. But I would just say that how do you make sure that your employees are in a good situation is, appreciation, good communication, and the old circle back, which I love what you said. If it was a bad day in our IT department, if malware gets in and it's just not a good day, that circle back, that level of appreciation, what do you need? Nobody could do it like you can. Where would we be without you? Which is the God's honest truth. I couldn't be helping in that area. So I would just say appreciation, good communication, and circle back. At least help make every day as best as you can try to make it.
Cindi, thank you for that one quick. I wasn't saying we live that all day. So when you get glimpses of moments and keeping the concept, thank you for that reminder. Yeah, because we're far from that.
Yeah. And so sometimes it's just about, having a project or having some things that need to get done and finding the right person, for that. And finding the right person is hard, but they know who they are. So if you create that open environment, that open space, they will come out and just jump in and do that. And they will do it like you wouldn't believe, So, if you got somebody, if you got a room that needs to be straightened out and organized, supply room or something like that, there is absolutely somebody in your building who loves neatness and organization and can't wait to get into that supply room. That's like the best day ever, right? So, and organize it. So you kind of need to invite those things to happen and be as open as possible.
Thank you, Gavin. Paul, thanks for the question. Our next Q back in the room.
My name is Jen Ward. And this is actually kind of a layup, and I think it's something that can be answered in one word. We talk a lot about internal management, and I know that's the focus, but I'd like to know what you as business leaders and we as individuals, business leaders, can do to encourage even more companies that may not already be pursuing conscious capitalism.
If I can ask a question, Jen, where are you from?
I'm from a company called Impact with Partners.
Okay, nice to meet you. Jen.
Okay.
Jen, could you ask that question one more time?
What's the question?
So, you can understand it. Just what can you as business leaders and we as individuals and business leaders in this room be doing to encourage more companies to pursue conscious capitalism?
I'll take that example. Be the change you want to see in the world.
We what?
Example. Be the change you want to see in the world. Yeah.
Cindi, did he steal your answer?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, I love that answer. I would just say because, okay, maybe this is selfish. It feels good to do good and to see good around you and to get positive feedback. How about just that?
It's intrinsically rewarding. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think one of the things that potentially can come out of this is smaller groups of companies that are interested in doing this, getting together, sort of having meetings, and just sharing ideas, what they're working on, what they're struggling with, how they're trying to do, and just some of that kind of thing might actually be, something great that might come out of something like this.
Do we have any more questions? Jen, we couldn't have scripted a better final question. That is true. Jen, would you like to sit in the big chair up here? Come on, we'll make it the Jen show. All right, well, a big hand to our excellent panel up here. It's not your usual business breakfast when it comes to this kind of thing, but it was excellent. Thank you, Cindi. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Gavin. Excellent. I'm sure you'll be getting Googled later on today. Oh, and Cindi, would you like to hear?
If you want, there's some tea bag samples for you when you leave too.
So Cindi has free tea bag samples. Lawrence, free money, perhaps?
Close. I just wanted to obviously bring it back to this chapter of conscious capitalism. And, as all of the us imaginal cells become butterflies, it's really important that we all come together, truly all come together to share. And thank you, Conscious Capitalism, Connecticut chapter, for doing this and bringing this environment together.
Gavin, I'm thinking free carrots.
No, but thank you guys for this. It's been a great experience for me. I've really enjoyed doing it. Totally appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin, Lawrence, and Cindi. Thank you very much. Okay, well, let's bring Larry back up here. Larry, we love your water.
Let's give Bryan a big round of applause. Thank you, Bryan. Great job. Thanks so much. And let's give our panelists another round. And Barry Nalebuff, even though he's not here, thanks so much. Great job. Thank you, Lawrence. Great job. Thank you. Well, we're about to wrap it up. We promised we would have a raffle, but I trust everybody found this to be a educational and enlightening morning. Did we? Yeah. And I'd like to respond to the question about how you get more companies practicing conscious capitalism. Join our chapter and help us spread the word through events like this. So, and tell other people about it as well. And again, I'd like to thank Barry, Cindi, Lawrence, and Gavin for partnering with the Connecticut chapter to provide this great opportunity to expand the conversation on conscious capitalism. And I really appreciate all of your attendance and participation this morning as well, and the wonderful question that you all ask. Once again, I'd like to also thank the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, our co-presenter, Mirtha Kalina, LLP, our presenting sponsor, Red Rock Branding, our marketing sponsor, and our supporters, Watson, Realize Solutions, Yale New Haven Health, and the RWA for helping to make today's program a success. I would also again like to thank Bryan Smith from WQUN for moderating the panel. He did a great job. And of course, our executive director, Karen Clark, for all of her hard work and energy in making today's event a reality. And let's also thank the New Haven Lawn Club staff for the wonderful job they did this morning. I think by the questions and enthusiasm shown this morning, there is no doubt that Connecticut is ready to become a force in the conscious capitalism movement, and that's the purpose of our state chapter. Through the chapter, our plan is to continue to educate and inspire business leaders with exciting forums like today's to have a positive impact on their companies, customers, employees, investors, and the communities, and to recognize that they are part of a bigger movement, not just individually acting on their own values, but collectively working to change expectations and behaviors. So if you're interested in signing up for our e-news or becoming a member, please hand us your business card on the way out or visit our website, connecticut.consciouscapitalism.org. The benefits of membership include networking opportunities with other like-minded individuals who are interested in conscious capitalism, sharing best practices, exclusive member events, and many more exclusive perks as we grow. So check out our website. Now, before we officially close this morning's program, we're going to give away a copy of Barry Nalebuff's and Seth Goldman's book, Mission in a Bottle, The Honest Tea Guide to Doing Business Differently and Succeeding, and 2 copies of John Mackey and Raj Sisodia's introduction to the movement, Conscious Capitalism, Liberating the Heroic Spirit of Business. So if you haven't dropped your business card in the basket on the way in and you want to be included in the drawing, there's an opportunity to drop it in now. And we have Anna Rubino is going around with a basket and Karen Clark is in the back of the room. So please be sure and put your card in. Okay, are we ready? So Karen, you're going to get an audience, or Anna, Karen, going to get an audience member to pull a card out of the box. And this is for a copy of Barry's book, Mission in a Bottle. So Ellen Durnan. Let's give her a round of applause. All righty, now for 2 copies of the Conscious Capitalism book. So we'll have 2 drawings. There we go. Jason? Well, draw it again. All right, one more. Big round of applause. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. You've been a great audience, and thanks for all your wonderful questions. And please watch for more news, for more events. Thank you.